all they probably do is squeal, but chill. When we start the revolution, when we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal, but chill.
George Jackson, age 29, California Adult Authority inmate A63837, imprisoned January 12, 1960. Offense, second-degree robbery.
Convicted of stealing $72 from a petrol station, Jackson had a juvenile record. He was advised to plead guilty to get a lighter sentence.
Sentence 1 year to life. Term served 11 years, 7 months, 7 years in solitary confinement.
1 to life means the convict is eligible for parole each year, subject to the judgment of a parole board. Jackson was refused parole 8 times.
January 1970, charged with the murder of a prison guard. Future, if convicted, death row.
With 2 fellow prisoners, Jackson allegedly killed a prison guard in reprisal for the shooting of other convicts. The 3, George Jackson, Fleeta Drumgo, and Jean Cliché, became known as the Soledad brothers.
August 21, 1971, San Quentin. 3 guards and 2 prisoners killed in an alleged escape attempt. George Jackson shot dead.
Time seems to be passing much faster these last few months. I wonder where it's running to, what's building. Well, I'm positively displeased, and I'm positively destined to remain so. Someone may have to get hurt, but power to the people. George. Fear, the emotion that stiffens and inhibits the mind of most men, causing them to be incapable of acting in their defense at the moment of trial, is totally lacking in me. I could look upon my total ruin with as detached and unconcerned as I look upon theirs. The payment for life is death.
George Jackson went to prison a rebellious 19-year-old black. 11 years inside, most of the time locked alone in a cell for 23.5 hours a day, turned him into a revolutionary. In a series of letters from prison, Jackson recorded his developing insight into the conditions of his country and people. Their publication made him famous. They became a vital text for black revolutionaries in America. Extracts are read during this film by an actor.
I've surrendered all hope of happiness for myself in this life to the prospect of effecting some improvement in our circumstances as a whole. I have a plan. I will give and give and give of myself until it proves our making or my end. There's no turning back from awareness. If I were to alter myself now, I would always hate myself. I would grow old feeling that I'd failed an obligation and duty that is ours once we become aware. I would die as if most of us blacks have died over the last few centuries without having lived.
18 months before he was killed, George Jackson joined the Black Panther Party, the final stage in his political development. The Black Panther Party is the most militant black revolutionary group in America, a small force of armed and angry blacks dedicated to changing America at whatever cost to white society or to themselves. Imprisonment and death are familiar to them. Most of their leaders, including co-founders Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, have spent long periods in prison. Many of their members are dead. The events surrounding George Jackson's death in San Quentin remain unclear. This film does not attempt to explore them, but the Panthers insist he was murdered by prison guards. Many of the black community cannot accept that such a man would have died in a pointless escape attempt. This film records the mood surrounding his funeral among his own people. For them it was a political event, to be commemorated with music, poetry and speeches. For the Jackson family, violent death is not new. Only last year, Jonathan Jackson was killed during an attempt to force the release of his brother George.
From the book of the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 3, verses 2 through 6. And a certain man, lame from his mother's womb, was carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple, to ask alms of them that entered into the temple, who, seeing Peter and John about to go into the temple, asked for alms. And Peter, looking at him with John, said, "Look on us." And the beggar gave heed unto them, expecting to receive something from them.
If I leave here alive, I'll leave nothing behind. They never count me among the broken men, but I can't say that I'm normal either. I've been hungry too long. I've gotten angry too often. I've been lied to and insulted to too many times. They've pushed me over the line from which there can be no retreat. I know they won't be satisfied until they push me out of this existence altogether. I can still smile sometimes, but the time when this thing is all over, I may not be a nice person. I just lit my 77th cigarette of this 21-hour day, and I'm gonna lay down for 2 or 3 hours, and perhaps I'll sleep. From that car with love, George.
Now, the history of the beggar is a history of our people. It's the history of black people. Because every black person in this country has been born lame and crippled from his mother's womb. From the time we've left the black wombs of our beautiful mothers, black people have been crippled and maimed and murdered, suffering from the black condition.
One of the things that we wanted people to understand, that the prisons are an animal all unto itself. You know, it has its own way of producing a certain kind of individual. A man, when he first goes to prison, comes there as a victim. He may be little aware of the kinds of circumstances that brought him there in terms of the courtroom, but after he is there, there are certain things that's made by the repressive kinds of situations. The fact that when you first come there, all your individuality is taken away from you. That's one of the reasons why you wear all the blue shirts there. Secondly, if you could understand what happens to a man's mentality after years of waking up to bells and going to bed by bells, going to work by work whistle, and not being allowed to make any decisions or function.
In the institutions, people constantly live in tension, live in tension. It's not fear, but it's just tension.
The prisons, because of the kind of oppression, see, I think it's oppression that makes the so-called revolutionary. You know, the more pressure that's put on men, the more he's repressed and the more he's stifled, then the harder his will is, the more chances that he'll take. See, they have created a kind of person, you know, and mostly black people, man, who started out in these juvenile halls at 13, 8 years old, and they just graduate straight through the system. These people never get a chance to know their mother, their father. They never get a chance to have a decent relationship with the woman. They have no wives, they have no babies, they have no commitments to anything but to the guys on the inside.
The revolution out here is for the purpose of oppression in relation to material things. more so than it is in there. I feel the revolution in there is oppression in relation to the mentality.
Actually, the effect of that kind of process has now spread to the street because you never...
To material things, more so than it is in there. I feel the revolution in there is oppression in relation to the mentality.
Actually, the effect of that kind of process has now spread to the street because you never forget what was done to you, period. And that's the whole thing, is that inside prisons, the situation, you've created a group of monsters. You've actually constructed a monster factory. Now these monsters are coming home to you, and now everybody's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. But you've made them, you know, you are the cause of them, and now you're reaping exactly what you sowed.
Chairman of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, Bobby Seale.
These are some messages from around the world, from people, organizations, and black brothers incarcerated, black brothers and sisters incarcerated in the prisons in this country. We're not dealing with anything arbitrary. We're dealing with survival. We're dealing with humanity trying to oppose the state's arbitrary decision to implement capital punishment. We must get rid of capital punishment. We're saying, in fact, that George Jackson had a right to defend himself because the state had already arbitrarily chose to kill him, to murder him. Reagan's other state administrators, the parole board, and all the prison officials, etc., and the courts, etc., had already chose to murder George Jackson. Now, where are we going from there? How are you going to explain to the people that George Jackson had a right to defend himself because they had already arbitrarily chose to kill and murder him? A black revolutionary brother, a Black Panther Party member, field marshal of the Black Panther Party, acting as a general, defending himself on August, was it the 21st? Well, I say yeah. I say yeah, we say yeah, the party say yeah, we're not backing up off of it. He was a human being, he protected his human dignity, we're not going to jive with it. People ain't gonna jive with it. The party's not gonna jive with it. We 1-1 with the people. George was 1-1 with the people, only separated from the people, along with 3,000 other inmates inside of San Quentin prison. An empty bed, tears are shed. No more sun after I'm gone. My family cries. Their love has died. My friends are there. Death is the air, my chains unbound. I'm put in the ground, everybody's sad, but I'm glad. It's lucky me because now I'm free.
I'm by nature a gentleman. I love the simple things of life, good food, good wine, and expressive book, music, pretty black women. I used to find enjoyment in a walk in the rain, summer evenings in a place like Harrisburg. All of this is gone from me. All the gentle, shy characteristics of a black man have been wrung unceremoniously from my soul.
Whatever he
the Minister of Defense of the Black Panther Party, and a servant of the people, Huey P. Newton.
Power to the people, power to our fallen comrade, Brother George Jackson, member of the Black Panther Party. First, I would like to explain, because many people wonder, what was the connection between Brother George Jackson and the Black Panther Party. When I went to prison in 1967, I met George. When George was murdered in San Quentin, I suddenly realized that after years of conditioning himself, the prison officials had been branded with a force to respect him, because even in death he was their hero. They claimed that he killed 5 men and wounded 3 in approximately 30 seconds. This is impossible practically, but I like to accept it anyway because George is my hero. That even they would say he could do this impossible thing, and then they say he headed for the wall. The wall that's, I don't know, some 30 feet high, and that they say they murdered him because he was heading for that wall. He was maybe he would escape. He would have to scale that wall and fly over it. And I can't accept this practically, but I have to admit that accepting George as my hero and my stand, it will be necessary for us to do this. We have to either knock down or crush the wall of exploitation and oppression is very, very great. And the oppressed is very, very afraid. He's afraid that we have this Superman power, that we can do it. And we will raise our children to be like George Jackson, to live like George Jackson, and to fight for freedom as George Jackson fought for freedom. We say that even after death, George Jackson still is alive because his ideas, his spirit will be manifested in the physical. Again, we see our young Panthers here who are growing up, and they will grow up, trying to live by the standard that George Jackson set. By this, George left a legacy, and he will go on.
Of course we need babies to help fight the protracted wars. Some of the comrades have different opinions on this question in principle, which would be, why should we allow this to happen to anyone else? But I support war on the family plan. The Vietnamese have 6-year-old mind planners. I think if I had been on the street from age 18 to 24, I would probably be a dope fiend or a small stakes gambler or humping the ground.
George certainly died in a significant way, and his death will be very heavy. While the ones that fell that day in San Quentin, their death will be lighter than a feather, because it's insignificant, and even those who support them now will not support them in the future, because we're determined to change their mind. We'll change their mind, or else in the people's name, we would have to wipe them out thoroughly, wholly, absolutely, and completely. All power to the people.
We reckon all the time in the future for the day of the man-child's death. Man-child, black man-child with submachine gun in hand, who was free for a while. I guess it's more than most of us can expect. I want people to wonder at what forces created him. Terribly vindictive, cold, calm, man-child courage. In one hand, the machine gun, in the other, scourge of the unrighteous and ox for the people to. In one hand, the machine gun, in the other, scourge of the unrighteous and ox for the people to ride.
It should be understood that my son was not a mad dog killer, that he was been portrayed to be a mad dog killer. His love was for all people, except those who sought to oppress others. Against this group, he leveled the constancy of his intellect, the might of his articulation, the power and passion of his manhood. To the former group, he dedicated his writings, gave all of the funds from his published and unpublished works, and his boundless warmth and love. Now that they have murdered the body of George Lester Jackson, which they are attempting to conceal with the Hitlerian technique of the big lie, they will attempt to eliminate the rest of the family through phony indictments and charges. We expect charges to be brought against us, but we have no fear. George Lester Jackson's spirit did not expire on August 21st, 1971.
A few years ago, I guess, George had said something to his father about, "I never expect to leave prison alive," or something of that kind. Am I accurate about that? And if so,